Welcome to our official review for Kid Cudi's new studio album, Insano. Kid Cudi decided to release a new studio album at the beginning of 2024, setting the tone for what might be a good year for Kid Cudi. So let's dive into this album review. And guys, if you want to see more album reviews just like this one, smash the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to keep up with all of our uploads. So Lou, Insano, we finally got it. This album has been teased for a while now, and especially after getting Intergalactic, that was a bit more of like a Netflix score album and followed suit with the show. This is maybe his first studio album since Man in the Moon 3, I believe, that was really just focused on Kid Cudi's discography. So diving into the artist performance, as a Kid Cudi fan, were you satisfied with what you got throughout the album? Where did he do right? And where could he improve maybe for next time?
Yeah, so I mean, Cudi definitely took a different approach with this album. I will say this, I am happy that it's not the 40-song track list that was initially teased. He did cut it down to, I think it's 20 or 21 songs, which is still too much for this track list, unfortunately. But when it comes to Cudi, you go through the first two songs and he has more of this slurred and mumbled delivery, which is a bit unusual for a typical Cudi track. And to be honest with you, it's not the best, because when it comes to Cudi, I like to know the messaging of the songs, and that becomes blurred with the type of vocal delivery that he had on a lot of these songs. Something I want to talk to you about is the hooks, because if you look at songs like Keep Bouncin', he just repeats bounce and yeah all over again.
Same thing for Get Off Me, Bitch, Get Off Me. Was
Same thing for Most Ain't Dennis, where the hook is him just saying round and he's grunting all over it. And this is not just any hook man. This is one of the best hook man in rap history. So to be getting these types of weak hooks was really disappointing.
It was concerning for me, because that's something that I always valued in Kid Cudi's arsenal. And to be honest with you, that's what I have to say about the artist performance. I feel like, personally, when you look at Kid Cudi as an artist, you go to him for a couple of different things, right? So his harmonies and his humming, right? That's something that every Kid Cudi fan loves. We've been enjoying it since the Man in the Moon series, even his earlier mixtapes. It's been a staple throughout his sound. The memorable hooks, right? You go throughout his entire catalog. There's so many memorable hooks, and legendary ones at that. Not only that, but I'm going to talk about this more in the content, but personal writing, being able to evoke emotion. And throughout this album, I feel like, especially in the artist performance, he didn't necessarily play too much into his strong suit. Because like you said, when you look at the hooks, even something like Wow, for example, I could have gotten past the song and the performance because he had a alright verse on it. There wasn't anything too crazy. But once you get that wow verse just repeated, I mean, it doesn't necessarily sound too great for the song itself, and it's a bit off-putting for me. Even something like A Tale of a King, for example, the whole like get him up structure to the verse where like he'll repeat that for a couple of lines.
A Tale of the Night, you mean?
Sorry, A Tale of a Night, excuse me. I had a mistake in my notes, my bad. But regardless, though, what I'm trying to say is that there was just like a weird structure to the hooks for this album, and that's something that I find extremely important for a studio album from him. But not only that, talk to me about the hums, all right? Because when we were reviewing the album, we looked at each other and we were like, I only got to track 14, and that's when you started to get the real harmonies.
The prominent hums.
Exactly, and the hums, and that's so important, especially for, just the mood setting of the album. So what do you think the problem was in that aspect?
I mean, I think it's the fact that he took a totally different approach with the album, which is respectable in terms of him trying out and experimenting with different stylistic choices vocally, but he seemed to really go for more of like this rage-esque, high voltage, aggressive cadences all throughout it, and that grew stale really quickly for me. And that's sort of a big issue that I had all across this entire album. When it did come to some highlights, I do enjoy the song, which is called Blue Sky, where he is harmonizing all throughout it. He gives you a catchy hook. He's sort of rapping about like the sun shining, the sky being blue. It's a very good, like, feel-good track. So that was a highlight for me. Apart from that, one of the only dynamic performances that I feel like we got was on Cud Life, where we hear him auto-crooning in classic Cudi fashion and giving you
the hook
also
was
the aggressive rapping.
But the only problem was, again, it comes down to a point to where, like, yes, you may have good verses, because even on something like, example, Get Off Me, I really like the first, Often I Have These Dreams, which was the first song off of the album. I like the verse, and it was only one verse on that song, but it was just like, then you start getting into the rest of the album and you realize that the verses aren't all that bad, but then it comes to the content matter and you listen to the hooks and it just feels a bit incomplete and disjointed as an album experience from Kid Cudi. One performance that I really liked was Electro Wave. That was really cool because that was, Cudi finding all these little pockets and crevices and really floating. I loved the energy from him. It was a very lighthearted performance, and those are those types of like light, airy vocals that I love from Kid Cudi, and I feel like more of that would have like welcomed to the track, if you get what I'm trying to say.
I just feel like he threw a lot of like his flows into a blender and was just a bit too carefree with the performances. And for that reason, I think it deserves a mid rating, to be honest with you.
It does deserve a mid rating. I definitely think Kid Cudi could have done better, but
Yeah.
all right, let's keep going on with this. Let's go into the content matter, right? Because you and I started listening to Cudi because of the personal and relatable lyrics, going to the Man on the Moon series, Indica, just so many great projects that have great messages and have substance to the writing, and I feel like that was definitely lacking here because throughout the project, you're going to find Kid Cudi going into a couple of different directions. Him talking about, his braggadocious energy. That was one of the big prominent topics throughout it. Another thing, just industry advice on, how to dodge certain people and his place and stature within the music industry. Something else that I feel like you got from the album itself was, him smoking weed and him getting loose off of the alcohol and
him getting freaky with the ladies.
exactly. But it was so predictable from a content matter standpoint, and that kind of makes me sad because whenever you want to go into a Kid Cudi experience, you want something profound, and I feel like that was kind of missing from the track list.
Yeah, I mean, you do get a couple of deeper cuts, something like A Tale of the Night, where he's rapping about losing his father and that how that put a battery in his back to make the most out of his life and pursue his dreams. That was welcomed, as well as the song Tortured, where he's rapping about like looking for guidance and feeling desperate because of all of these demons that are attacking his mind. And that's sort of that classic Cudi content, you could say. But those moments come so few and far between on this track list, and it leaves you, wanting a bit more substance. And that's the other thing I feel like about the writing on this album is that it's very disjointed. There isn't that much topical focus from one song to the next.
Can I go through some stuff?
Yeah, go through some stuff.
So, Tale of a Night. This is, I believe, on verse 1, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the verse number in front of me, but I'll go through it. Saw him, we see him, we Gucci, we take off on a flight. We in Omega, we dim the lights. Steward is pouring the liquor, we lit just bossing the shit. Like, I understand that maybe it's going to get some people hyped or maybe in a party sort of zone, but this is elementary for Kid Cudi, and it's something that I feel like could have been improved on. Even the first verse on Cud Life, want to get that hypnotic shit. Now, in fact, hey, yeah, that ass fat, yeah, you gotta go hard and tame that, fit that. So you're just also like those are also the ways that like he's introducing you to some of his verses, and it's a bit off-putting. You're already starting the verse on like a weaker note because you're hearing a line or two that's like, well, what am I really getting out of this verse
like
that's coming up?
On Most Ain't Dennis, he starts off the song with the line, "Act like my poo don't stink." And it's like, well,
or even on Too Damn
right.
High. Too Damn High, yeah, I'm such a fly guy. Said it's nothing that I live up in the between lives. I decided, man, it's such a right time. Like,
and listen, I don't want to just focus on highlighting the cringe
Yeah.
bars, but to me, it's more the fact that there's no clever punchlines. There's no lyrics that make you take a double take or say, oh, like that was really cleverly written or executed. Like, there's not much going for it besides
a couple of outliers. On
a couple of outliers, like I said, where he gets a bit deeper with his personal demons and him wanting to find mental clarity, you could say.
Absolutely. Even DJ Drama wasn't that needed on the track list, if I'm being honest with you. There was not necessarily a DJ Drama intro where I'm like, wow, that's fucking crazy. And that's getting me absolutely hyped up for a track. So for the content matter, I think that we're going to go mid with this. I was going to say mediocre.
Yeah.
We're going to go mid with this. But okay, let's continue going on. Let's go on to the features, all right? Because we did have a stacked feature list. We had Travis Scott on 2 different verses. We had Rocky, we had Lil Yachty, Pharrell, XXXTentacion, Lil Wayne, and Young Thug. So let's start off with Travis. I do feel like he has some of the best portions of the album. He's been on an absolute tear with his verses in 2024 so far. And of course, you did get At the Party in 2023. So which one do you prefer out of the two?
I think I prefer Get Off Me, even though he does come with like a familiar flow that you might have heard off of a couple of different cuts on Astroworld. But I really enjoy the back and forth between him and Cudi. Like, as a fan of the Scotts themselves, I believe it's the first time you ever really had them going back and forth on a verse. So that was interesting and new for them. So I enjoy what he did there. And then At the Party, gave a pretty good performance. I thought he
stole the show.
Stole the show.
He
yeah,
stole the show, most definitely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
His rhythmic timing really matched the tempo of the song perfectly, and that's something that, in my opinion, Pharrell and Cudi couldn't really do.
But you see, this is where I think we're going to disagree with.
Yeah.
It's going to be on the Pharrell feature. I actually liked it.
He's talking on it, though.
But no, but it's like that smooth, subdued sort of like Clips Pharrell that he's delivered that hook before on old Clips albums. Like, that's why I liked it. It was just like, oh, okay, that's a cool addition. And not only that, but I feel like his cadence perfectly matches those flutes in the background for the production. So I was okay with it. That wasn't my problem. I feel like Kid Cudi maybe could have given a bit of a better performance, but overall, it's a song that I'm actually going to keep. That grew on me. But let's keep going
talk about
on with
ASAP
this.
Rocky.
Yeah, ASAP Rocky.
That was another anticipated one. Once again, comes in with familiar flows, brings his usual charisma. I did think he carried the song, but again, it was sort of standard for him, to be
Yeah, it was
honest.
all right. Let's keep going on with this. Let's go on to Yachty on Too Damn High. This was another anticipated feature because people were asking, where were they going to meet? Were you going to meet on more of like a psychedelic rock experience that you might have found on like Let's Start Here and Cudi would have gone into his world? Or was Yachty going to maybe do something similar that he did with Drake with like a rapping performance? So he ended up doing the rapping performance.
Yeah.
And for a couple of portions of his verse, he does use the Poland vocal effects, which
At the beginning.
I find it cool. I mean, it's nothing too crazy. It's like you've heard this before from Yachty.
Yeah, but he's totally offbeat, though.
And that's something that I didn't enjoy about the verse and, about these recent Yachty features is that the flow is completely disjointed. And like when he's off rhythm like that, I feel like not that it kills the vibe of the song, but it's so much harder to get into rhythmically, And so I felt like that could have been improved
That's
on.
kind of been Yachty's thing, but I'm still not going to fuck with it now. Like,
Yeah. So whatever. That was that. Let's keep going on with this. Let's go on to XXX Tentacion's posthumous verse on X and Cud. So how did you like that? And do you think that it added something to the track list?
I mean, listen, the vocals were pure, they were emotional, they were raw. It is just a sample flip from the song Orlando off of 17. So, I mean, the fact that it's billed as a feature, I don't know if it should have been because it's literally just a sample and he has like an intro and a bridge and that's really just about it.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel with a couple of these performances on the feature side where it's like they felt very short. They felt like they didn't really add all that much, but Lil Wayne on 7, how did you feel about that? Because to me,
it was a standard performance.
it was uneventful for me.
Yeah, it was a standard performance. It's not like a Bash Money, for example. You're not getting-
no,
we're
it's
not
not,
talking. We're not talking about high tier Lil Wayne
No, we're
features,
not.
but it was all right. I mean, once I got towards the end of the track list, I was actually maybe expecting something a bit worse, but I said, okay, that's pretty solid. And then after that, Young Thug on Rager Boys, it was cool. It wasn't too energetic from Young Thug. That's something that I didn't necessarily enjoy too much,
I liked his cadence though.
but it was cool. Yeah, his cadence was
And
cool.
he came back for the back and forth after his verse, and I like seeing that dynamic between Cudi and other artists. So that was pretty cool, I guess.
So the features were good. I think the features were good. But let's keep going on.
I
with
agree.
This. Let's do the production, right? Because production is always an important part of any Kid Cudi album. Dr. Genius. You have so many different
Benny X, Sad Pony.
so many different producers on here. So
Plain
how did you feel
Pat.
about the soundscape that you got today?
The soundscape, I mean, it was interesting to see Cudi really venture into more of a trap influenced soundscape for the most part. You look at a song like Keep Bouncing, which Honorable Sino produced. It's loaded with sub bass. You have these hardcore drums, and I do feel like the bass is a bit overwhelming in the mix, and that's sort of a complaint that I have with a lot of the beats on here, where it's just distorted bass over and over again, track after track.
Yeah, but there was also a point on Cud Life. I'm not sure if you heard this, but there was an instrumental that was on loop and back that came in and out of the production, and it sounded like a wood saw, and like it kind of created a weird effect in my headphones, and I wasn't necessarily too big of a fan of it.
But what's your favorite beat?
I'm gonna say At the Party. I think that's probably
Wow.
the best beat off of the album. I like it because there's like a classic bounce to it. I like the flute behind it, and I like the day and night vocals from Kid Cudi that come in and out of it. I feel like it's a really creative soundscape, and it's unique to the rest of the track list. Also, something like Hit the Street, I like the sample flipping back. I think that was cool. Same thing for Funky Wizard Smoke, that vocal sample where
The la 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 la. Yeah.
that was really well implemented inside it. It wasn't done like in a scary, dark, eerie sort of sense. It was more of like a lighthearted production, which I like. So overall, I think the production was good. Like you said, a lot of trap and rage beats. You're gonna get a different cast of producers on here, but it's not necessarily the best produced Cudi album, but it's always going to be passable with Kid
Yeah,
Cudi.
it will be. X and Cud was a highlight for me just because you got the 808 drum machine and it reminded me of 808s and Heartbreak, especially with the glistening piano keys at the beginning of it. So that was a highlight for me, and that was produced by, actually, I don't have it. Let me see here. X and Cud was produced by Dr. Genius, John Cunningham, and John Baptiste. Yeah. And then Blue Sky was another highlight for me. Give me Man on the Moon vibes. You got these electric guitar strings, and it felt like one of the more colorful beats, and it was definitely distinguishable from the other productions you had gotten on the album. But overall, I think the production was good. Like you said, it was passable. But again,
Not his best produced album.
like the beats are good, but they're not really best suited for Cudi, if that makes sense to you,
in my opinion.
in my opinion.
But okay, let's keep going on with this. Let's talk about the replay value because I've had Kid Cudi's albums in rotation throughout my entire life. I grew up listening to Kid Cudi. everything, his mixtapes, whatever the case may be, and he makes timeless music. Kid Cudi
Yeah.
is an artist that makes timeless music. He has an incredible legacy in music, but I do feel like the replay value on this album is going to be missing for me, and there's a couple of reasons why. I don't think this is a start to finish album, if you ask me, especially clocking in at an hour and 4 minutes, having over 20 songs. I mean, it's not necessarily as long as an album with like 26 or 27, but it feels long. The album feels very heavy to listen to, and that's not that great for me. Another thing is that maybe, in comparison to other reviews I've given, there's not as many skips per se or bad songs, but I barely have any saves on here, if I'm going to be quite honest with you. So I'll go through the track list. I'll tell you how I feel about my replay value with it. Often I have these dreams. That's probably going to be a keep for me. I'll go back to that. I like that. Electrowave, that was another one where I was like, okay, that's really solid. Funky Wizard Smoke's another one I'm going to go back to. At the Party was another one that I'm going to go back to. So
It's
maybe
quite a
four,
few.
So maybe 4 songs there. But then once you start getting into like the other ones, like example, Wow, X and Cud, Blue Sky, I think they're passable tracks, but it's not something that I'm like dying to go back to off of the track list, if I'm being honest with you. So how did you feel about the replay value?
I mean, not to say that every song on here is bad or mid. I do think that there is like really salvageable songs like Blue Sky, even looking at something like Tortured, looking at a song like Wow with ASAP Rocky. There's some decent tracks on here, but this is not a good crop or batch of Cudi songs. I'm not going back to a single one of these. In my own personal rotation, like I'm just going to be honest about it, there's not a single keep for me. I mean, maybe with more listens that'll change, but as it stands right now, a lot of the songs on here don't capture the essence of what makes a great Kid Cudi song.
Yeah, and
to
if I'm not gonna keep like 18 Kid Cudi songs off of an album, the replay value is barely even there. So for that reason, I think the replay value is bad.
Yeah, it is bad.
At least for me. You guys might enjoy it. I think the fans are probably gonna eat it up if like you're a really diehard Kid Cudi fan. But I have a hard time getting into the album for now. We'll see how it ends up aging on me. But let's talk about the overall thoughts. So I was expecting a bit more. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, I've been waiting for this type of Kid Cudi for a long time now, especially after Man in the Moon 3, getting Intergalactic, which was a good release, but it didn't necessarily like satisfy like my needs for Kid Cudi music, if you get what I'm trying to say. I wanted to hear something that was like, okay, this is an official Kid Cudi release, nothing else attached, no TV show. So I feel like I'm a bit let down on that. As far as the artist performance goes, I said what I said about it. I do feel like it's a bit lackluster. The hooks weren't that strong, and Kid Cudi just didn't play into his strengths, in my opinion. And I
Yeah.
feel like it could be better for next time. The feature list was cool, but it wasn't anything too crazy. The production, beat for beat, was all right, but like you said, it didn't necessarily fit Kid Cudi's style of rapping or the types of vocals he was laying down. And then as far as like what I'm keeping out of this album, it's not very much. So for that reason, I think I'm going to give this an overall mid rating.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, I think that for myself, going through the album experience, a lot of songs end up sounding the same as you continue going through them, and it feels like a lot of them have a formula where you have a lot of heavy sub bass, you have these beats that have a dark twist to them, you have Kid Cudi with the aggressive, ultra confident delivery, trying out some quirky flows here and there, but I just feel like he tried too hard to try to modernize his sound and to appease this current generation with a lot of the Benny X productions and a lot of the party anthem leaning songs, which I understand him wanting to make more feel-good and uplifting music. That's cool for Cudi to stay away from the more depressive stuff, which is fine too. But the bottom line for me is that if you want to have party anthems, you need danceable productions, you need catchy melodies and hooks, and he didn't really bring much of that. So to me, again, I respect the attempt. The execution overall was off. So it is a mid-album ultimately for me.
Yeah, maybe they're going to take this and tour with it and put it into live settings, because at that point,
Yeah.
maybe these types of sounds is going to suit that. But, for every other type of listening experience, I do feel like it's lacking. So, guys, let us know where we got it right. Let us know where we got it wrong. And, where do you agree, disagree? Thank you guys so much for watching this review. And as I said at the beginning of this episode, if you guys want to see more album reviews from us throughout the entirety of 2024, which is coming very soon, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. We appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.